This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
And the next day is probably why you wanted to listen to this episode. December 14th, 1992 is when the incident happens. Meltzer would write of it. Probably the most talked about item of the past week revolves around the firing of Nailz from the WWF on December 14th. It's been confirmed by many that there was a physical altercation between Wacholtz, 34, and McMahon, 47. Wacholtz had not talked about the incident publicly as of press time, apparently on advice from his lawyer, although he did file a police report immediately after the incident. The only official Titan word that I know of from last week was that a memo was released on December 14th that Wacholtz was terminated immediately for unprofessional conduct. Apparently Wacholtz, who lives in Minneapolis and had a reputation as a street fighter and won a tough man contest in the Twin Cities before becoming a pro wrestler in '84, was meeting with McMahon in a locker room around 4:30 in the afternoon before the television tapings that evening in Green Bay. A few Titan officials who were near the room started to hear loud shouts coming from the room, and according to one source, some thought it was just another wrestler shouting really loudly doing a promo, but then there was a very audible, "I want my fucking money." Apparently the argument was involving Wacholtz's payoff from the SummerSlam pay-per-view show, which he had apparently just received and thought was too low. After the argument grew more heated, those listening heard what sounded like a punch or a thud, and some WWF officials opened the door to find Wacholtz on top of McMahon, and he had his hands around McMahon's throat, with the latter helpless. The two were then pulled apart by 4 agents. So before we go on any further, fucking A, let's just start at the beginning. Were you in Green Bay at this TV taping?
I was.
And did you hear the commotion? Do you hear other people telling you, hey, did you hear what happened? Or take me through the day.
No. There's a backstory to it too. And, I actually have a very small part in the backstory of it, but we always worked at Vince's house, and either the day before or a couple days before Kevin had called Vince's house, I answered the phone as Vince was busy on another phone call. And so we would always answer the phone, and I told him that Vince was busy, and I asked who it was, and he said it was Kevin. He said, "Who's this?" This is Bruce. He says, "All right." He goes, "Well, tell him I called and asked him to call me back." I said, "Okay." And, Vince got the phone, told him that Kevin had called, and, sorry, hold on. And we were so close to TV, Vince said, "Okay, I'll talk to him at TV, whatever he's got on his mind." So we got to TV, and I remember it again. It was nothing, but then in hindsight, God damn it. And, you just think back and things. And I remember walking in, and Kevin had asked me, he says, "Hey, Prichard, did you tell Vince that I called the other day?" I said, "Yeah." He said he would talk to you today. That was the last that I saw, spoke to, and/or saw Kevin Wacholtz. So Pat and I were at the ring doing something, and we just started walking to the back and ran into Paul Bearer, who was coming from like the back. There was like an arena in an ag hall connected to the arena. So it was kind of like 2 buildings, and we had interviews and shit going on in the ag hall. It was just a weird setup. But Paul came, and he says, "Well, that was fast," or "That was over, that's over," or something like that. I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Oh, the fight." "What fight?" And he says, "Oh, Nailz and Vince." And we look at each other, so we run back to Vince's office, and Vince was in his office, I think, with Sarge and Arnold Skolin and somebody else. It's like, what the fuck happened? And he just basically they were talking, and he just lunged, and Vince went ass over tea kettle. And when he lunged, I guess Kevin was trying to choke him, and then everybody was in there and got him off of him right away. It wasn't a fight. At least from all the witnesses that were there. And it was pretty much, you heard the voices raised, you heard the crash, and then everybody was in there. So I don't even think a punch was thrown. And, Vince was, other than his tie was crooked, no harm, no foul, and just, more pissed off than anything.
From your recollection, did Vince or anyone at the company call the police right then, or did you guys just say, "You're fired, get the fuck out," and he left?
I remember, no, at that point, I don't think we did. I don't think we called the police. Kevin did.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. He called them 2 days later, but I'm saying right then, in that moment.
No, he called them right then.
Okay.
He called them right then because they came and, took a statement and stuff. But it was fast. It was, not much other than, hey, somebody go and tell Kevin he needs to get his bag and go. And I believe that was Jack Lanza who did that, but that Jack Lanza or Sarge, but they went and Kevin left, but he had called the police first and he waited outside for the police to get there and talk to them. And then the police came in and talked to Vince.
Do you want to tell everybody what he told the police?
I don't know what he told the police.
Allegedly.
Who?
Kevin.
Vince?
Kevin. Why did the police come there?
He said he was assaulted or something. He said that Vince jumped.
So here's the silliness that was reported. The discussion was about money. This is all from the Observer. Said WWF spokesperson Steve Palamenta. I said that right? Planamenta?
Planamenta, yeah.
Yeah, Planamenta. I guess he wasn't happy with his pay, quote. What happened after that is he jumped on Vince. Police came, and then we have a police report that alleges Vince did things that were a total fabrication. Meltzer would say a police report was filed 2 days later by an officer named Scott Seam in the Brown County Sheriff's Department, listing Wacholz as the victim and McMahon as the suspect in an alleged sexual assault. In the report, Wacholz claimed he pushed McMahon away, knocking him to the floor, and at that time, agents and wrestlers came in and separated the two. The police report says that at the time, the locker room door was partially open, and the victim believes the witnesses may have seen or heard something. Wacholz claimed it was the second time McMahon had assaulted him, the first time being the prior month at Madison Square Garden. WWF official Earl Hebner said he was 5 or 6 feet away, looking through the door, which was open when the incident took place. And Hebner said that McMahon and Wacholz had been arguing for 45 minutes to an hour about his SummerSlam payoff. Wacholz apparently had just received the payoff and was complaining it was too small and demanding more money. Quote, "He launched across the room, grabbed him by the throat and threw him down," said Earl Hebner. At that point, Sergeant Slaughter, Gorilla Monsoon, Dave Hebner, and Arnold Scollin came in and pulled Wacholz off McMahon. Quote, "Kevin ran to the phone and called 911 and told the police to come down because he'd been sexually assaulted," Earl Hebner recalled. "Not a chance. There's no way. He couldn't have pulled out a gun as fast as Nailz was on him." The police arrived 15 to 20 minutes later, and listed in the report were 3 witnesses: Sergeant Slaughter, Arnold Scollin, Owen Hart, and the case was turned over on the 15th to the district attorney's office. McMahon, who's listed as the suspect in the case, had not been charged as of Monday. And there's a PR firm that handles the stuff for Titan Sports, and they make a statement a week later saying that Wacholz was trying to extort $150,000 from McMahon. And the report would say, for whatever this is worth, the general consensus.
Hold on. Sorry.
I mean, this look, not as certainly not. Producing TV in a pandemic. Here we go, baby. Let's get back at it. Maybe we can finish it out here.
Okay.
This is the last of the report from Meltzer. For whatever this is worth, the general consensus within the wrestling business is that Wacholz's story isn't believed. However, in many quarters and among wrestlers, both in the WWF and out, Wacholz has turned into something of a hero in bar talk for, quote, having the guts to pop McMahon, end quote. While the bitterness among so many towards McMahon in this business is not a surprise, I was surprised at the reaction of so many toward the incident. If what Wacholz claimed in the police report is true, so be it. If it isn't, I'm sorry, but McMahon doesn't deserve to be put in this position, no matter what he may have said or who he may have upset in the past for something he didn't do. Titan Sports is turning into a jungle of litigation more than it is a wrestling company. And by the way, Bret Hart was there that night, and he wrote about this in his book. He says Vince had problems to deal with in Green Bay. For the past 6 months, he had been building Kevin Wacholtz as a psycho killer ex-con named Nailz. Kevin cornered Vince in his office and screamed at him for 15 minutes about all the lies he'd been told. His yelling got so loud I had goosebumps up my back as I listened from down the hall. Suddenly there was a loud crash. Nailz had knocked Vince over his chair, choking him violently until Lanza, Slaughter, and a swarm of agents teamed up to pull him off. Nailz walked out and immediately called the police and accused Vince of making a sexual advance to him. Vince was charged with sexual assault. Of course, the charges were dropped shortly thereafter. And some of the boys actually admired Nailz for snatching Vince and then covering his tracks well enough to not get charged himself. The last thing Vince wanted was yet another scandal. We should, mention that there's a couple of different things going on, accusations against members of the staff and also the steroid scandal. So we're knee deep in the middle of other stuff. So it doesn't, so I guess surprise me that necessarily Vince doesn't try to pursue this, but the idea that he's quote unquote covered his tracks and now I guess is trying to extort $150,000. When did you hear about, hey, pay me $150,000 and I'll make this go away?
I just think that I don't really remember. And again, that night, that day, everything happened so fast and was just kind of a blur. Plus you got to, produce 3 television shows that night. So that makes it crazy. But after the fact, it's, I know it sounds weird, but you're involved in so much craziness all around you that, you move on. You just put your head down and you move on. It's difficult to defend against make believe or shit. And you have to defend yourself at some point. And that, it takes me back to just even like the dirt sheet stuff as I vent to you so often. When I read things that are just complete fabrications that are printed as fact and printed as this happened or this is how it happened, when it's nowhere near how and or what happened. It just, you get overloaded and it's just, it's frustrating. Just really, really frustrating. And I think that was what everybody was feeling. And especially Vince, who was put in a really, really shitty position.
We should mention that the Green Bay District Attorney's Office refuses to prosecute the claim due to lack of evidence. A few weeks later, though, it's reported that McMahon is now suing Nailz, and it's filed in the same Wisconsin courthouse. And McMahon is claiming that Wacholtz has perpetrated a violent attack and assault upon him with great force and violence. And as a consequence of the attack, the suit claims McMahon suffered pain and bodily injury, as well as embarrassment and humiliation. He also claims that the defendant filed a false police report claiming he had been sexually assaulted, and the police report compounded the anguish and humiliation because the police report was published in various media outlets, which is pretty remarkable.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.